The day my children sold my farm, they believed they had inherited everything. They were wrong. For more than 50 years, there was one place on that farm no one had entered. Not my son, not my daughter, not even my grandchildren. An old red barn stood quietly at the far end of the property, surrounded by oak trees that had witnessed generations come and go. Its weathered wooden doors remained locked through every season. Spring rains, summer harvests, autumn leaves, winter snowstorms. The lock rusted with age. The paint slowly faded. But the barn never changed. As a little boy, my son Daniel used to ask me almost every week what was inside. "Dad, is there treasure in there?" I'd smile and shake my head. "What kind of treasure?" "The kind pirates hide," I'd laugh. No pirates ever visited this farm. Then Sarah would join in. Then maybe Grandpa hid gold in there. I always gave them the same answer. "When the time is right, you'll know." As they grew older, the questions became less frequent. School replaced curiosity. Careers replaced childhood. Life became busy. Eventually, they stopped asking altogether. They simply assumed the barn held old machinery, broken furniture, or boxes nobody had bothered to throw away. They couldn't have been more wrong, because inside that old barn was something more valuable than anything money could ever buy. The strange part is, I never planned to keep it a secret forever. I was simply waiting for the right moment. Helen understood that. My wife always said, people only recognize the value of memories after they've spent too much time chasing money. At the time, I thought she was simply being sentimental. Years later, I realized she was preparing me for this very day. The morning my children tried to sell the farm, neither of them asked about the barn. They asked about contracts, property values, developers, closing dates, square footage, future profits. Not one. Did either of them ask about the place where every important memory of our family had been quietly waiting? That wasn't because they were selfish. It was because life had slowly convinced them that success meant looking forward instead of looking back. I don't blame them. The world teaches us to build careers, to invest wisely, to think bigger, to move faster. Very few people ever teach us how to protect a family's story. That morning, as I stood watching strangers measure my fields, I realized something. Land can always be sold. Buildings can always be rebuilt. Money can always be earned again. But once a family forgets who they are, no amount of wealth can buy those memories back. That was the day I decided the barn would finally be opened. Not because I wanted to reveal a secret, because my family needed to remember something far more important than what was hidden inside. They needed to remember each other. My name is Michael Carter. I'm 69 years old. I've spent my entire life believing that the greatest inheritance a parent can leave behind isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the values, the memories, and the love that survives long after we're gone. This is the story of the day my children sold my farm, only to discover that the one thing they truly needed could never have been sold in the first place. Before I tell you how my children almost sold the farm, you need to understand why that land meant so much to me. Because if all you see is a few hundred acres of soil, you'll never understand why I refused to sign those papers. Every story has a beginning. Mine began on a rainy afternoon in the spring of 1982. I was 26 years old, fresh out of agricultural college, working 2 jobs, one during the day at a local feed supplier, and another at night repairing tractors for neighboring farms. I wasn't poor, but I certainly wasn't wealthy. Every dollar I earned already had somewhere to go before it reached my pocket. Then I met Helen. People often ask how I knew she was the one. The answer is simple. She believed in me before I had given anyone a reason to. Most people saw a young man with calloused hands and impossible dreams. Helen saw a future. One Sunday afternoon, we drove past an abandoned farm just outside town. The paint had faded years earlier. The fences leaned in every direction. Most of the fields had been swallowed by the weeds. Even the old barn looked tired. I pulled the truck onto the shoulder and stared across the property. "It's beautiful," I whispered. Helen laughed. "Beautiful?" I pointed toward the fields. "Not what it is today, what it could become." She looked at me for several seconds, then smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The owner wanted to sell. Almost everyone who looked at the property walked away. The soil needed years of work. The farmhouse needed repairs. The equipment had been removed decades earlier. The bank manager practically laughed when I applied for the loan. "Michael," he said kindly, "this isn't an investment. It's a burden." I thanked him for his advice, then signed the papers anyway. 3 months later, Helen and I stood in front of our new home. The porch sagged. Several windows were broken. The roof leaked. There wasn't even enough furniture to fill the living room. But we stood there holding hands, smiling as we just purchased a mansion. Because we hadn't bought a house. We had bought a dream. Those first years tested us in every possible way. One summer, drought destroyed almost half our crops. The following winter, a snowstorm collapsed one of the equipment sheds. Another year, our old tractor failed right in the middle of planting season. There were nights Helen and I sat at the kitchen table after midnight trying to figure out which bills could wait another week. Yet somehow, neither of us ever talked about quitting. Whenever I became discouraged, Helen would quietly pour 2 cups of coffee. We'd sit on the porch together before sunrise. She'd point toward the fields. "They're teaching us patience," I'd laugh. "No, they're teaching us bankruptcy." She'd smile. "No, they're teaching us faith." That woman could find hope where everyone else found problems. Slowly, things began to change. The soil improved. The harvest became stronger. Neighbors started asking how we were doing it. The answer was never complicated. Consistency, every single day. Whether we felt motivated or not. Whether the weather cooperated or not. Whether anyone noticed or not. Little by little, the farm became exactly what we'd imagined. Then Daniel was born. I still remember carrying him outside for the very first time. He couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. I held him in my arms while the morning sun rose over the eastern field. "One day," I whispered, "this will all be yours to protect." 3 years later, Sarah arrived. Unlike Daniel, who loved tractors almost immediately, Sarah preferred following Helen through the vegetable garden. She somehow believed every injured bird, every stray kitten, every abandoned puppy needed to come home with us. Helen never had the heart to say no. Our farmhouse slowly became part of our family home, part animal shelter. Those were noisy years, happy years, busy years. Saturday mornings became family traditions. Before sunrise, we'd pile into the old red pickup truck. Daniel sat beside me, pretending to steer. Sarah sat between Helen and a basket full of homemade biscuits, wrapped in a towel to keep them warm. We'd drive slowly around the property, checking fences, feeding cattle, inspecting crops, and planning the day's work. By 9 o'clock, everyone already felt like they'd accomplished something. Looking back now, I realized we weren't building a successful farm. We were building memories. Memories disguised as ordinary days. At the time, none of us recognized them as anything special. That's how life works. The moments you'll treasure most rarely announce themselves while they're happening. One autumn afternoon, Daniel drove the tractor by himself for the very first time. He wasn't old enough, probably wasn't ready, but he looked at me with those determined eyes and said, "I can do it." I climbed down, handed him the seat, walked beside him the entire first lap around the field. When he finished, he jumped off the tractor, smiling from ear to ear. "Dad, did you see that?" I did. "Was I good?" I smiled. "You were careful." He looked disappointed. "I wanted to be fast." I placed my hand on his shoulder. Fast impresses strangers. Careful protects families. He rolled his eyes the way teenage boys often do. Years later, I wondered if he remembered that conversation. Sarah had her own lessons. One afternoon, she accidentally broke one of Helen's favorite flower pots. She came into the house crying, certain she'd be punished. Instead, Helen handed her some glue. Together, they carefully repaired the broken pieces. When they finished, the cracks remained visible. Sarah looked disappointed. "It isn't perfect anymore," Helen smiled. "No, but neither are people." She placed a tiny flower into the repaired pot. Sometimes the things we've repaired become even more precious than the things that were never broken. I never forgot those words. Neither did Sarah, although she wouldn't realize it until much later. As the children grew older, the farm continued growing with them. The old barn became our family workshop. Every Christmas decoration was stored there. Every birthday banner, every family photo album, every handwritten letter, every school project, every dream. Helen believed memories deserved a home. She carefully labeled every box, every shelf, every drawer. One rainy afternoon I asked her, "Why are you keeping all of this?" She smiled without looking up. "Because one day, our children will need to remember." I laughed. "They'll remember." She looked directly at me. "No, Michael." "They'll remember the big things. I'm saving the little things." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Now, I understand she was building something far greater than a storage room. She was quietly creating the heart of our family, the place that would one day remind our children that before they became executives, before they became investors, before success filled their calendars, they were simply two children who ran barefoot across these fields, believing their parents could fix almost anything, if only life had allowed them to remember that a little longer. People often think families fall apart because of one terrible day. In my experience, that almost never happens. Families drift apart one missed visit at a time, one unanswered phone call, one postponed holiday, one promise to come next month. Then suddenly, years have passed, and nobody remembers exactly when things changed. Daniel's first job after college took him 3 states away. I still remember loading the last box into his pickup. He hugged his mother, then hugged me. "I'll be back before you know it," Helen smiled. "We'll keep your room exactly the same." For the first year, he came home often, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, sometimes for no reason at all. He'd spend hours helping me repair fences or grease the tractor. Then his career began taking off. Promotions, new clients, longer hours. The visits became shorter. The phone calls became quicker. Instead of asking, "Dad, how's the wheat doing?" he'd ask, "Dad, how are property values looking out there?" At first, I thought it was a harmless conversation. Looking back, perhaps it was the beginning of something much larger. Sarah's path was different. She built a successful career in retail management. She traveled constantly. Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Seattle. Her calendar always seemed full. She never forgot birthdays, never forgot anniversaries. She always called, but somewhere along the way, our conversations became updates instead of stories. "Dad, how's your blood pressure?" "Good." "How's the harvest?" "Fine." "Need anything?" "No." "I love you." "Love you too." Then, click. 5-minute conversations replaced entire weekends together. The strange thing is, none of us noticed. Life has a quiet way of convincing people that staying busy is the same thing as staying connected. It isn't. One October afternoon, Daniel arrived unexpectedly. I was replacing fence posts near the creek. He climbed out of a brand new black SUV, wearing clothes far too expensive for farm work. "You've upgraded," I joked. He laughed. "Business has been good. I'm glad." He looked around the property. "You've got more land than I remembered." I smiled. "The land hasn't changed." He laughed politely. "I guess I forgot." That word stayed with me. How do you forget hundreds of acres where you spent your childhood? You don't. You simply stop seeing them the same way. We walked together toward the barn. He looked at it briefly. "You really ought to tear this thing down." I stopped walking. "Tear it down? It's falling apart." "It isn't. Dad, it has character." He smiled. "I think the insurance company would call it a liability." I laughed. "That's because insurance companies don't understand memories." He shook his head. "Everything doesn't have sentimental value." "No, but some things do." He looked unconvinced. Later that evening, as we watched the sunset from the porch, he casually mentioned something. "You know, developers have been buying farmland around here." I sipped my coffee. "I've heard. They're paying incredible prices." "I'm sure they are. You could retire comfortably." "I already sleep comfortably." He smiled. "You know what I mean." "I do." Neither of us mentioned it again. But the idea had entered the conversation. Once an idea enters, it has a habit of returning. A few months later, Sarah brought the grandchildren for a weekend visit. Watching those children run across the same fields where Daniel and Sarah once played reminded me how quickly time changes everything. My youngest granddaughter found an old tire swing hanging from the oak tree. "Grandpa, Did Mommy use this? I smiled. She practically lived on it, Sarah laughed. I fell off twice, 3 times. She looked surprised. You remember? I remember everything. She became quiet, almost thoughtful. That evening, she wandered into the barn. Only the first room, not beyond the locked inner doors. She picked up an old wooden sled. I haven't seen this in years. You and Daniel fought over it every winter, she smiled. I don't remember that. I do. She looked around slowly. It's amazing what you've kept. Then she asked, almost absent-mindedly, why keep all of it? I looked toward the back of the barn. Because somebody should. She didn't understand. Not yet. Winter came, then spring. Life continued until one Tuesday morning, the telephone rang. The number wasn't familiar. Normally, I would have ignored it. Something told me not to. Mr. Michael Carter speaking. My name is Thomas Green with Greenstone Development. The company name meant nothing to me. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. So do I. I'm calling regarding next Friday's property closing. I frowned. What property closing? Wait a minute. The kind of silence that instantly changes the direction of a conversation. I'm terribly sorry. So am I. I think someone should have informed you. Informed me about what? Another pause. Then he quietly said, I believe it would be better if you spoke with your children. The line went dead. I stood there in the kitchen holding the phone, listening to nothing. For several minutes, I simply stared out the window, toward the fields, toward the barn, toward 43 years of my life. Then I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I stopped and waited, not because I didn't know what to do, because deep inside, I already knew exactly what that phone call meant. I was simply hoping, for the first time in my life, that I was wrong. The rest of that day felt unusually quiet. The farm hadn't changed. The wind still moved through the wheat. The cattle still wandered lazily across the pasture. The old barn still stood exactly where it always had. Only my heart felt different. For the first time in decades, home didn't feel quite as peaceful. I decided not to call Daniel. I decided not to call Sarah. People reveal more when they don't know what you already know. Around 6 that evening, Daniel called. Dad, hello son, how's everything? Quiet, sir. Working today? A little. Don't work too hard, I smiled. I'll try. He hesitated. I was thinking. Yes, Sarah and I were planning to come by Friday. Friday, the same day the developer had mentioned. What time? Late morning. I'll be here. Great. His voice relaxed, almost as if he had just confirmed something important. Before hanging up, he said, Dad, we've got something exciting to tell you. I quietly answered, so do I. There was a brief silence. Then he laughed. See you Friday. The call ended. I looked across the room toward Helen's photograph sitting on the fireplace. She always claimed children could never truly hide anything from their parents, not because parents were smarter, because parents had watched them become who they were. Every smile, every lie, every fear, every dream, nothing ever completely disappears. The next morning, Sarah called. Dad, morning. You sound tired. I didn't sleep much. You should slow down. I've been hearing that for years. She laughed. Then her voice softened. Daniel says we'll all be together Friday. So I've heard. We're really looking forward to seeing you. I believe you. There was another pause. She cleared her throat. Dad, if you had the chance to start over, would you still buy the farm? That question surprised me. I would. Without changing anything, I looked out the kitchen window. Not one thing. She didn't answer immediately. I always wondered why. Why what? Why you stayed, I smiled. Because your mother never gave me a reason to leave. Sarah whispered, I miss her. So do I. Then, very quietly, so much, after we hung up, I walked to the barn, unlocked the outer door, stepped inside. Dust floated through beams of morning sunlight. The familiar scent of old wood greeted me like an old friend. I walked slowly toward the shelves. Everything remained exactly where Helen had placed it years earlier. Each box carried a handwritten label. Daniel, school projects. Shra, art, family vacations, Christmas, birthdays, letters, recipes, wedding. One shelf held dozens of cassette tapes. I picked one up. It read, Summer, 3 Curious. I carried an old tape player from the workbench. Pressed play. Static filled the room. Then, laughter. Helen's laughter. Young Daniel shouting because he'd caught his first fish. Little Sarah insisting she had caught a bigger one. My own voice somewhere in the background pretending to be the referee. I closed my eyes. For a few minutes, the barn disappeared. The years disappeared. Helen was alive again. The children were small again. The farm wasn't valuable. It was simply home. When the recording ended, silence returned. I carefully placed the tape back where it belonged. Then I noticed something tucked beneath it. An envelope in Helen's handwriting. It simply read, For Michael. I frowned. I didn't remember seeing it before. Carefully, I opened it. Inside was one handwritten page. It said, If you're reading this, it means the day we've talked about has probably arrived. I stopped breathing. Don't be angry with the children. Life has taught them how to earn a living. Now they must remember how to build a family. The barn will teach them what we no longer can. Wait until they are ready. Then give them the key. They'll finally understand. By the time I reached the end of the letter, my hands were trembling. Helen had known years before she died. She had somehow seen this day coming. She hadn't hidden memories inside the barn. She had prepared a lesson neither of us would be alive forever to teach. Friday morning finally arrived. Daniel pulled into the driveway first. Sarah followed only a few minutes later. The grandchildren raced toward the porch. Grandpa, I hugged each one, trying not to let the adults see the tears forming in my eyes. Inside the kitchen, coffee was already waiting. Fresh biscuits, exactly the way Helen used to prepare them. Sarah noticed. You made these? No, the bakery in town deserves the credit, she laughed. For a second, I thought Mom had come back. None of us spoke after that. Daniel finally placed a thick leather folder onto the kitchen table. He looked nervous. Dad, we've been working on something. I know, he blinked. You do? Yes. Sarah looked confused. What do you mean? I quietly slid the developer's business card across the table. Neither of them touched it. The room became completely silent. Daniel slowly leaned back in his chair. So, you know? I know enough. Sarah whispered, Dad, I'm sorry. Daniel opened the folder anyway. Inside were professional renderings, beautiful new neighborhoods, walking trails, shopping areas, luxury homes. Every drawing looked impressive, except one thing. My farm no longer existed. The pond where Sarah learned to skip stones, gone. The oak tree where Daniel built his first treehouse, gone. The vegetable garden Helen loved, gone. Even the old barn, gone. Replaced by a parking lot. I quietly closed the folder, then looked at both my children. I have one question. Daniel nodded slowly. What made you believe I wanted any of this? Neither answered, because for the first time, they realized they had never asked. For a long moment, no one spoke. The kitchen suddenly felt much smaller. The ticking clock above the refrigerator sounded louder than ever before. Daniel looked at the floor. Sarah stared at the old family photograph hanging beside the window. Neither of them could answer my question, not because they didn't have an answer, because they had never asked themselves that question before. Finally, Daniel took a deep breath. Dad, we thought we were helping, I nodded. I believe you. We weren't trying to hurt you. I know. Sarah reached across the table. We've been worried about you ever since Mom passed away. You've been here alone, working every day, climbing ladders, driving tractors. We thought, her voice broke, we thought you were holding on because you didn't know how to let go. I smiled us gently. You thought I was trapped. Both of them nodded. I wasn't trapped. I was grateful. Neither of them understood. Not yet. Daniel opened another folder. Inside was a printed offer. I wanted you to see this. I looked down. The purchase price covered nearly the entire page. It was more money than Helen and I had ever imagined earning in a lifetime. Daniel spoke carefully. Dad, after taxes, you'd never have to worry about money again. I looked up and smiled. Daniel, when have you ever known me to worry about money? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, because he couldn't remember a single time. I folded the offer, placed it back on the table. You know what your mother used to say? Both shook their heads. Money should solve problems. It should never become the reason you create them. Silence settled over the room. The grandchildren's laughter drifted through the open kitchen window. They were chasing butterflies near the old oak tree, exactly where Daniel and Sarah had done the same thing decades earlier. I pointed outside. What do you see? Daniel glanced toward the window. My kids. And they're playing, and he frowned. I don't know, I smiled. I see tomorrow. Sarah quietly wiped away a tear. I see the same children your mother watched, the same laughter, the same joy, the same freedom. If I sell this place, what happens when they're grown? Daniel answered immediately. They'll still have us, will they? He looked confused. I stood and walked toward the window. When they want to show their own children where they learned to fish, where will they go? When they want to stand beneath the tree where their grandmother read stories, what will they find? When they want to visit the porch where 4 generations watched the sunset, what will be there? Nobody answered, because we all knew. A row of expensive houses, a parking lot, a neighborhood entrance sign, places for strangers, not memories for family. Daniel quietly lowered his head. I never thought about it that way. I know. That's why this isn't about blame. It's about perspective. I walked back to the table, reached into my jacket pocket, and slowly placed the old rusty key on the table. Both of them stared at it. "The barn," Sarah whispered. "Yes." Daniel looked at me. "You've carried that key my entire life." "I have." "What's really in there?" I smiled. "The answer to every question you've asked me today." He laughed nervously. "Dad, I'm serious." "So am I." He leaned back in his chair. "Can we finally open it?" I shook my head. "Not yet." He looked disappointed. "Why not?" "Because you're still looking for treasure," Sarah frowned. "There isn't treasure?" "Oh, there is. But not the kind you're expecting." Daniel looked at the key again, then back at me. "When?" "Tomorrow morning, at sunrise. Bring the children. Bring yourselves. But leave one thing behind." "What?" "The idea that you're coming to collect an inheritance." The room became quiet again. Daniel slowly picked up the purchase contract. Without saying a word, he folded it, then folded it again. Finally, he slipped it back into the leather folder. "I'll call the developer." I gently placed my hand on his arm. "No." His eyes widened. "No? I'll handle that. I don't want this to become another burden you carry." He nodded slowly. "I understand." Later that afternoon, I met Thomas Green at the edge of the property. He climbed out of his SUV with an apologetic smile. "I had a feeling this might happen. I owe you an apology." He shook his head. "No, sir. You don't." "I've seen families fight over land. I've seen brothers stop speaking. I've seen lawsuits last for years." He looked across the farm. "But I've never seen someone protect memories the way you have." "Oh, I'm not protecting memories. I'm protecting the people who made them." He stood silently for several seconds, then extended his hand. "I hope your children realize how fortunate they are." "So do I." As he drove away, I watched the dust disappear down the gravel road. Tomorrow, the barn would finally open. Not because it contained something priceless, but because it contained something far more important. A family that had almost forgotten who they were. That evening, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. Because I knew that by tomorrow's sunset, my children would no longer inherit a farm. They would inherit something much greater. They would inherit their family. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. Not because I had somewhere to be, because after 30 years, the day had finally arrived. The sun had not yet cleared the horizon. A thin blanket of mist rested over the fields. The farm was silent, except for birds welcoming another morning. Helen used to say sunrise was God's reminder that every day begins with another chance. As I stood on the porch with a cup of coffee, I smiled. "You're right again," I whispered. Just after 7 o'clock, Daniel's SUV rolled slowly into the driveway. A few minutes later, Sarah arrived with the children. Nobody spoke much. There was an unusual respect in the air. Even the grandchildren seemed to sense today was different. I walked into the house one last time, opened the kitchen drawer, and picked up the old iron key. The same key I had carried for nearly 3 decades. It wasn't polished. It wasn't valuable. But somehow, it had become one of the most important things I owned. I slipped it into my pocket, then looked toward the family photograph hanging above the fireplace. Helen smiled back at me from the picture. I think they're ready. For a brief moment, it almost felt as if she'd nodded. We walked together across the yard. No one rushed ahead. No one talked. Even the children held their parents' hands quietly. When we reached the barn, everyone stopped. I turned toward my grandchildren. Do you know why this barn has always been locked? The oldest grandson smiled. Because Grandpa likes mysteries. Everyone laughed softly. I nodded. Maybe. But mostly because some lessons can only be learned at the right time. I stepped forward, placed the old key into the lock. The metal resisted for just a second. Then, with a loud click, the lock turned. I slowly pulled the doors open. Sunlight streamed through the opening. Dust floated through the air like tiny stars. The grandchildren stepped inside first. Their eyes grew wide. This isn't treasure, one whispered. I smelled. Oh, it is. The barn wasn't filled with gold. There were no stacks of cash, no hidden fortune. Instead, there were carefully built wooden shelves stretching from floor to ceiling. Every shelf carried neatly labeled boxes. Every box represented a chapter of our family's life. Daniel slowly walked toward the nearest shelf. His hands trembled as he read the first label. Daniel, first day of school. He opened it carefully. Inside, his tiny backpack, a first grade report card, a crayon drawing of our farmhouse, a photograph of him proudly holding the first pumpkin he had ever grown. He laughed. Then almost immediately, he cried. I don't remember any of this. I do, I answered quietly. A few feet away, Sarah opened another box. The label simply read, oh no, Dreams inside. She found dance recital photographs, a blue ribbon from the county fair, her first diary, letters she had written to her mother while away at college. She picked up one envelope, opened it, and began reading aloud. Mom, I miss hearing Dad whistle while fixing fences. I miss your apple pie. I miss sitting on the porch after dinner. I didn't know home could hurt this much when you're away. She couldn't continue. The tears came too quickly. One of her daughter quietly wrapped an arm around her. Mom, Sarah smiled through her tears. I forgot, she whispered. I forgot who I used to be. I walked toward an old workbench. There sat a battered cassette player. I pressed play. The barn filled with familiar voices. Helen laughed. Daniel, 8 years old, shouted that he had finally caught a fish bigger than Grandpa's. Sarah argued that hers was still prettier. The grandchildren laughed. Mom, was that really you? Sarah buried her face in her hands. Oh my goodness! Daniel stood perfectly still, listening, not to the recording, to his childhood. When the tape ended, no one spoke for almost a full minute. Finally, I carried one last wooden box to the center of the room. It had no label, only our family name burned into the lid. The Carters. I opened it. Inside was a single envelope. I looked at Daniel. This is yours. He frowned. What is it? The last thing your mother asked me to protect. He carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. He looked at me. Should I read it? I nodded. His voice shook. My dear children, if you're reading this, then your father has finally opened the barn. Sarah immediately covered her mouth. Daniel continued, if you expected money, I'm sorry to disappoint you. If you expected land, you'll receive that someday. But before you inherit property, I wanted you to inherit perspective. His voice cracked. The greatest thing your father and I ever built was never this farm. It was the family standing beside you. Everyone was crying now, even the grandchildren. Daniel paused several times before continuing. If one day you must choose between making more money or making one more memory with the people you love, choose the memory. Years from now, that will become the only wealth your children can still hold. He folded the letter, unable to continue. I quietly finished the final paragraph from memory. Take care of each other. Come home often. Laugh loudly. Forgive quickly. And never allow success to convince you that your roots no longer matter. With all my love, Mom. The barn was completely silent. Daniel walked toward me. He didn't say a word. He simply hugged me, the kind of hug a little boy gives his father, the kind that asks for forgiveness without speaking. Sarah joined us, then the grandchildren. 4 generations stood together inside that old barn, not because of what had been stored there, but because of what had been restored there. Our family. A few minutes later, Daniel walked outside. Near the fence still stood the large greenstone development sign the surveyors had placed the previous week. He stared at it for a long moment, then pulled it out of the ground, carried it to the old woodpile, and quietly broke it apart. His son looked up at him. "Dad, why did you do that?" Daniel smiled. "Because I almost sold the wrong thing." That afternoon, we shared lunch inside the barn. The grandchildren listened to old recordings. Sarah copied Helen's apple pie recipe. Daniel asked me to teach him how to repair fences again. Not because he planned to become a farmer, because he wanted his children to know where they came from. Months passed. The farm remained exactly where it had always been. Only one thing changed. It was no longer my farm. It became our family's home again. Now, whenever people ask me why I refused to sell all those years ago, I simply smile. Because they still think the story was about real estate. It never was. It was about inheritance, not the inheritance measured in dollars, the inheritance measured in character, in memory, in forgiveness, in love. I've lived long enough to learn one truth. Money can buy almost anything, except another childhood, another parent, another family dinner, another chance to say, "I love you." So, if the people you love are still here today, call them, visit them, make another memory. Because one day, those memories will become the greatest inheritance anyone could ever receive. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story reminded you of someone you love, tell us about them in the comments below. And if you believe that wisdom is the greatest legacy we can leave behind, I'd be honored if you joined our family by subscribing to Wisdom Wins Stories. Until next time, take care of the people who make your life worth remembering.